Have you ever found yourself making a choice, and even as you're making it, some part of you knows it's not good for you? It's this strange, common struggle that just seems to defy logic. Well, today, we're going to dig into a really powerful concept from spiritual philosophy that might just explain these hidden forces. It's called inherited karma.
So let's just start with a huge question, one that really challenges something most of us just assume is true. We love to think we're in the driver's seat, right? That we're making these rational, independent choices. But what if that feeling of control isn't the whole story? What if our choices are actually coming from scripts that were written generations before we were even born?
And look, this isn't about being smart or not. We see it all the time. Brilliant, highly educated people, folks who are great at analyzing things, and yet they get caught in these cycles of self-sabotage. They make decisions that lead to real harm. So that tells us that intelligence alone is not enough to guarantee wisdom. Something else is at play, kind of clouding up our perception.
This ancient insight from the Bhagavad Gita just gets right to the heart of it. It suggests that so much of what we do is driven by these underlying forces, these qualities of nature. Our ego, that sense of I, it loves to take credit and say, I did that. But we might just be acting out a momentum that was already there. This brings us right to our first section, where we're going to explore this exact idea, the illusion of free choice. How much of what we call me is actually just a collection of patterns we inherited?
So the source material calls this phenomenon inherited karma. Now, it is so important to get this straight. This is not about some cosmic reward and punishment system for a past life. Not at all. Instead, think of it as a binding momentum. It's a set of unconscious psychological scripts, fears, and survival strategies that have been passed down right through your family lineage. This slide does a brilliant job of showing the two competing intelligences we all have inside us. On the left, you've got your conditioned intelligence. This is all about history. It's reactive. This is where that ancestral memory lives, where inherited karma operates, and it leads to a really clouded perception. But on the right, we have divine intelligence, or buddhi. This is our capacity for crystal clear discernment that's totally in the present, timeless, and anchored in our true self. Inherited karma is basically the fog that keeps us from seeing with that clearer, wiser intelligence.
So how does this actually show up in our lives? Well, these unconscious scripts literally create the boundaries of our reality. They're the things that dictate what feels natural versus what feels forbidden, what seems like a good risk versus a terrible one, and even what we believe is possible for ourselves. The real trick here is that we think we're choosing freely, but our very perception of the options has already been constrained. All right, so we've defined inherited karma as this binding momentum. But what does that really look like in the real world? This next section is going to dive into its tangible effects so we can get a deeper understanding of what it truly is. The main result is just this really frustrating and painful cycle. We find ourselves repeating the same mistakes over and over, drawn to situations or people that we know deep down are just going to end badly. Our rational mind might be screaming, no, don't do it, but this deeper inherited momentum just pulls us in a different direction. It's not that our wisdom is gone, it's just buried under all that noise. This slide maps out what's called the path of distortion, and here's how it works. First, inherited fear clouds our judgment. That fear then triggers a knee-jerk impulse, completely bypassing any kind of thoughtful reflection. And then comes the final, really insidious step. Our own intelligence gets co-opted, not to fix the mistake, but to justify it. We become masters at explaining away our poor choices, all while dodging any real responsibility.
A really powerful, though sometimes subtle, sign of deep karmic misalignment in a family is this built-in hostility toward higher principles. This can show up as cynicism about whether our actions have consequences, or mocking people who are devoted or reverent, or even coming up with these intellectual defenses for indulgence and excess. It's basically an ego strategy that the whole lineage uses to protect its own patterns by tearing down anything that might threaten.
So those are the patterns, the repetitive choices, that path of distortion, the hostility to anything higher. These are the key signals of karmic distortion. Now that we can recognize the problem, we can finally turn to the solution. And it's not about fighting the past, it's about bringing a whole new quality of awareness into the present. The fix for this is what's called God consciousness. Now the source is really clear on this. This isn't about a religious belief system. It's a specific state of awareness, one that anchors your mind beyond your personal story, beyond your ancestral history. It's all about reorienting yourself to the timeless present moment and to universal ethical truths. And what happens when we start to access this state?
Well, the very first thing is that the frantic, impulsive way we make decisions just starts to fade. The choices slow down. Those automatic reactions start to lose their grip on us.
And as things slow down, that fog of ancestral memory starts to lift. Our ability to see situations for what they really are, our discernment, it deepens. We can finally start to see the long-term consequences of our actions.
And then, ultimately, wisdom returns. We're not talking about being intellectually clever. We're talking about profound clarity. We become capable of making choices that are truly aligned with our well-being, not just with our inherited conditioning.
Okay, so the cure is higher awareness. But what does that actually do? I mean, how can a simple shift in awareness break these powerful multi-generational patterns?
The source uses this incredible analogy. It says that when a person with a genuine spiritual inclination enters a family system, it's not just another personality showing up. It's as if awareness itself has entered the system. Their presence doesn't cause disruption. It just causes exposure.
Because you see, clarity just naturally destabilizes distortion. The mere presence of this awareness brings unspoken tensions to the surface. It challenges behaviors that have been accepted as just the way we are. It reveals what's been hidden or tolerated for generations. And it just heightens everyone's ethical sensitivity simply by being there.
So this is the crucial point. If resistance flares up, it's not a personal attack on that individual. The real question we should be asking is this: what patterns, what dysfunctions, what secrets could no longer stay hidden once a clear light was shown on them? That resistance is just the karmic pattern defending itself.
This leads us right to our final section, how a pattern is actually broken. What's the ultimate takeaway from all of this?
The way we get free from these patterns isn't some mystical act of going back in time to save our ancestors. Nope. True ancestral release happens right here, right now. It happens the moment one person in the lineage decides to end the unconscious repetition. You break the chain by simply refusing to pass it on. And this, right here, is the most empowering conclusion. Our inherited patterns may have carved out the path we've been walking on. They may have shaped our tendencies, our inclinations. But awareness gives us the power to choose a new direction. It gives us our agency back, right here in the present moment.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a question to think about. We all carry stories from our lineage, stories about what's possible, what we should be afraid of, and who we are. The real work is to become conscious of them. So the question is, which inherited story will you choose to stop telling?